Today we're making a mushroom Wellington with super flaky pastry that's nice and crispy, and it's going to be packed full of flavour. So without further ado, this is how you do it. So to begin, I've got 4 large flat mushrooms, and I'm just going to simply tidy them up by trimming off this edge. And to do that, I just place it down, standing it up, holding it firmly, and then just run the knife down the edge, and it cuts through the stalk and through the ends, and then you should end up with a nicely trimmed mushroom that looks just like that. And then repeat that with the other 3. Don't worry about these scraps because we're going to put them back. That'll go into the main mixture for the mushroom Wellington. So these mushrooms are going to go into the middle of our mushroom Wellingtons, and I'm making individual mushroom Wellingtons today. So each one will get a whole mushroom in the middle, and when you cut through it, you'll see that nice mushroom in the centre of the Wellington. So next, place them into a baking tray, and then we're just going to drizzle them with a little bit of oil, sprinkle over some thyme, season with salt and pepper, and add a few slices of garlic. And then we're going to bake them in a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius for 20 minutes. And while our mushrooms are baking in the oven, we're going to move on to our other mushrooms. And for this, I've got 250 grams of chestnut mushrooms plus the trim from the other mushrooms. And all I'm going to do is simply cut these ones into quarters, and then they're going to go into a food processor. And you can just add that other trim in there as well. You could chop them up by hand, but we want them chopped nice and small, and a food processor is much more efficient at doing that than me. And then with the mushrooms, we're going to add some onion. I've got 2 small onions here, or you can use 1 large. It depends what you've got. Just going to simply peel them, and I'm just going to cut them into quarters and add them in. And then I've got 2 more cloves of garlic, and I'm just going to roughly chop them and add them into the food processor as well. So next we're going to blend this up, but we don't want to blend it until it's smooth. We're just going to pulse it until it chops it up nice and small. So now that's done, we'll have a little look, and then you should have a nice chopped up mixture that looks like this. Place a frying pan or a saute pan over a medium-high heat, and then drizzle in a little bit of olive oil. This is roughly around 20 to 30 millilitres. And cook this down for about 5 minutes, and you'll notice that there'll be some sticky bits on the bottom of the pan, but that's good. It's not burnt, it's just a whole load of flavour, and that's exactly what we want. Now at this stage, add in 2 sprigs of chopped rosemary leaves, 2 sprigs of chopped thyme leaves, and about 5 sage leaves chopped. Stir it through and cook for 2 more minutes. Next, pour in 250 millilitres of vegetable stock, and this is going to help take all those sticky bits off the bottom and add the flavour into the dish. Now add in 200 grams of baby spinach. It seems like a lot, but it'll wilt down, and immediately place on a lid and then allow it to wilt and cook down for another 4 to 5 minutes. Once your 20-minute timer is up on your larger mushrooms, you can remove them from the oven and place them to one side and just leave them, forget about them, and let them cool down while we finish making our other mushroom mixture. You'll notice that the mushrooms are much softer and nicely cooked through, nice and juicy, and this is going to make them a lot easier to work with when we come to make our Wellingtons and wrap them in pastry. Next, remove the lid and stir the wilted spinach through the mushroom mixture. And then we're going to add in 100 grams of breadcrumbs. And this is just going to help absorb any of the moisture and it's also going to act as a binding to help hold the mixture together for our filling. Cook it for a further 2 minutes just to let any more moisture evaporate, and then remove it from the heat. And then you should have a mixture that's not too wet and not too dry and looks something like this. Now we're just going to leave that here to cool down before we start forming the filling for our Wellingtons. So now that our mixture has cooled down and so has our mushrooms, we're just going to take a small bowl or any kind of mould you can find. You could even use a little cookie cutter or a ring mould for this, and then just press in a little bit of foil so it sits inside. And next we're going to place a couple of spoons of the mixture on the bottom and press it right in there. So it looks like that. And then we take one of our lovely mushrooms and we place it in, stalk side up, right in, and press it down into the mixture until you can see it coming up slightly around the sides. Then we're going to take more of our mushroom mixture and we're going to press it and fill it right into the top. So next, take a small piece of parchment paper and just press it onto the surface so we can flip it over and then hopefully remove the foil, and we should have our nice shape for our individual Wellingtons. So repeat that until they're all done. So that's our filling for our Mushroom Wellingtons complete. Next, we're moving on to the pastry. So next we are going to prepare our pastry for our filling, and I've got some puff pastry here. This is a homemade one that I've made, but I recommend just using the shop bought because it is really accessible and it's actually really good. But if you do want to see me make a tutorial on homemade puff pastry, then let me know in the comments below and I'll make a video on that. So what I'm going to do is lightly dust my surface, and I'm going to roll it out, and I'm going to roll it out to about 1/2 centimetre in thickness. I'm just cutting the pastry in half because I'm going to use 1/2 for the bases and 1/2 for the top to cover them. So I'm going to roll them out individually now. So this half is going to be for the tops and this will be for the bases. So I'm going to start by just cutting that into quarters, because we have 4 Wellingtons. So just got 4 squares there. And then we can take our filling and just carefully remove the paper and place it into the centre, just like that. So next I'm just going to cut my other piece of pastry into 4 as well, just into quarters. And then I have got some egg yolk here. This is just egg yolk. There's 2 egg yolks in there, and that's going to bind the pastry together, help seal it in, and it's also going to be for our egg wash at the end as well. So take one of your pieces of Wellington and you just want to brush around the edge with the egg yolk. And then I like to put a tiny little bit, just dab it on top. Just helps the pastry stick to the top as well. And then take a sheet of your pastry and gently lay it over in the centre. Now don't worry too much if it doesn't seem to cover the whole thing, because you can just gently stretch it over. Start with your hands like this, go from the top and gently push it down, covering the whole Wellington. And when it meets the pastry at the other side, just push it down firmly. So we're going all the way around. You might get a crease in it, that's absolutely fine, not a problem. So now that is sealed all the way around, and as we've gone down, we've pushed it from the top because we're trying to push any air out of it as well. We don't want the air in there. So I can take my knife again and trim off the excess pastry. Don't worry about the shape of it just yet. And that side. Just going to use a palette knife to move it over. And then I'm going to grab a fork and I'm going to follow it round, all the way around, just nipping the pastry together with the fork, all the way around the edge. And then I like to just go around the whole thing with my knife to get a nice round shape, leaving just about 1/2 centimetre of pastry around the bottom. And these cuts also help seal the pastry together. If you've got a cutter, a cookie cutter or something that's big enough to go over the whole lot, you can use that, and then you get it really nice, neat and round. And I'm just going to place it onto a square of parchment paper because that's going to make it easier to lift and move around, and then just repeat until they're all done. So the good news is that that is all the difficult bits done, and now we need to glaze our Wellingtons. And we're just using the same egg yolk we had before, and simply just brush a nice even layer all over your mushroom Wellington. All the way around the edges, at the bottom, up the sides. But it's important to try and get a nice thin layer. You don't want to put it on too thick. And that's also because we're not just going to do one layer of glaze on here. We're going to do a double glaze. So once this one's gone on, it's going to go in the fridge for 20 minutes to half an hour, or until the egg yolk has set. And then we'll brush it one more time. And that's just going to create a really rich looking, beautiful varnish like glaze on our Wellingtons. So there we go, a nice even layer. So these have been in the fridge for about 20 minutes now, and you can see that it's set and it's just gone a little bit tacky, which means we can glaze it again. So just repeat exactly the same process another time. So now that the second glaze is done, I'm just going to take a skewer and place a little hole in the centre at the top. And that's just going to help any steam escape during the cooking. You can use a skewer like this, or a small knife, or whatever you've got to hand that'll create a little hole at the top. And then the final step is scoring the glaze. Now, you don't have to do this, it's completely optional. You can bake them as they are, and that's absolutely fine. But if you want to score them, this is how you do it. Take a small paring knife, and I'm just going to score from the bottom, follow the curve around and meet it where I've made the hole at the top. Now it's important not to cut the pastry. So my aim is purely to cut through the glaze. And the way to do that is to not apply pressure. You can see I'm just gently holding the knife and I'm letting the weight of the knife do the job. And I'm just turning the greaseproof paper as I score each time until I go all the way around. And then finally, for the final touch, I'm just going to sprinkle on a few sea salt flakes before we bake it. So now our mushroom Wellington are ready to bake, and all we need to do is place them onto an oven tray, and then we're going to place them in the oven at 170 degrees Celsius until golden and crisp. So these have been baking now for 45 to 50 minutes, and they're beautiful, golden, crisp, and I can't wait to see what they're like inside. So we're just going to go straight ahead and we're going to cut into one. And hopefully we'll have that nice cross section of the mushroom inside. So there we have it, some beautiful individual mushroom Wellingtons that are so tasty. I hope you give this one a go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.